My dad's a scientist, and my mother's this McGill-educated, manifesto-writing feminist who has sort of intellectually been able to sort of square away the fact that she's both pro-choice and president of the Women's Catholic League. I was... My family, they're sort of these intellectual German Catholics, and I was educated by these rationalist Jesuits. So when I'm sort of confronted by really sort of fiery, emotional topics, I tend to sort of approach them with sort of a cool disposition that most people sort of confuse as me not really giving a fuck. And in sort of matters of love, when I'm sort of troubled by things like that, I tend to sort of reach out to, I don't know, evolutionary psychology and economics. And I try to find sort of a model that sort of describes the situation I'm in, and therefore I can sort of, sort of more productively use my time sort of finding a way to sort of deal with reality instead of sort of maybe engaging in bar fights. And even sort of as a young teenager, when all of my peers were sort of running around going, when am I going to have sex, and what does sex feel like, I was sort of sufficiently immersed in the literature that I kind of understood that when those questions were answered, they were actually replaced by even more troubling questions like, when does sex actually start to get better, and when does she stop making those really painful looks? There's sort of a interesting phenomenon in economics where if you ask people, should we raise the minimum wage? Should we raise the minimum wage by, say, 25 cents an hour? That almost everybody in society says, yeah, let's raise the minimum wage. The only people opposed to raising the minimum wage are people who are kind of making just above the minimum wage, making, say 25 cents an hour more than the minimum wage. Even though there's sort of no sort of objective change in their economic circumstances, they tend to take solace in the fact that there's somebody out there that's still earning less than them, and so I think we sort of tend to do a lot of this in our own life, and in my life it sort of manifests itself in when I'm sort of single and miserable, I tend to look around my, the company I'm working at, and I try to identify, who are the other males in the company who are both single and maybe have worse prospects than me. And that kind of sort of backfired at me at one point. It was sort of the mid-1990s, and I was working at a software company, and there was this coworker, his name was Sean, and I sort of identified him as maybe the single male in the company who had worse prospects than me. Sean was, Sean didn't really wash a whole lot, and I think he sort of brushed his teeth even less, and he kind of had like a side job, like a second job as a pornographer. This was sort of the mid-1990s before broadband was sort of in everybody's home, and you could just download great swaths of pornography in the comfort of your own home. So Sean had a side business where he was using our company's T1 high-speed line to sort of download great swaths of pornography, and then he would burn them to CD and then sell them out of the back of like computer magazines. And now, I didn't think Sean had worse prospects than me because he was, smelly and was really into pornography. When you work in software, that's just the buy-in. You just, you just assume your male coworkers are smelly and into pornography. What sort of made me think that maybe Sean was single and had worse prospects than me was that Sean was, Sean was kind of a pig, basically. When we were sort of maybe going for lunch and we would be walking down the street, if we saw an attractive woman approaching us, sort of the computer nerd, the first instinct as a computer nerd, if you see an attractive woman approaching you, you suddenly take interest in whatever portable electronic device you have. And, you start sort of searching your Apple Newton, hoping maybe there's a app on it to make you invisible to intimidating, attractive women, and but Sean would start sort of moaning loudly as the woman approached, and not only could we hear, but she could hear it as well. And I got to remind you, I'm standing right next to Sean, and I don't have the invisibility app on my Apple Newton, so you know, you would kind of hope as the woman maybe passed us by, the indignity she's suffering and maybe the lesser indignity I'm suffering sort of ceases, but Sean would sort of stop and then kind of turn around, and then in his words he would check out her can and sort of audibly to her sort of rate it on a 10-point scale, and so I just sort of assumed that Sean was sort of single and had less prospects than me, and then one day we're out for lunch, and then Sean sort of casually mentions that he's bringing his girlfriend to the company Christmas party, and I suddenly got like really depressed when I heard that. Not because I was Sean's got a girlfriend, I don't have a girlfriend. It's nice Sean found love, but I couldn't imagine a woman who had such low self-esteem that she was dating this part-time pornographer. And I just thought maybe Sean hangs out at hospital wards, like tries to pick up burn victims or something like that. I just was really, really depressed what this woman was going to be like. And a couple of months go by, and it's the company Christmas party, and Sean brings his girlfriend to the company Christmas party, and she's beautiful. I kind of expected her to maybe be like, that sort of woman at the end of Star Trek: The Cage, where, after the space aliens sort of stop using their psychic illusion on Captain Pike, it's this woman sort of poorly put together after a horrible accident. But, like I say, she wasn't like that at all. She was just this beautiful woman. And again, I wasn't depressed by that. It was nice, that Sean found love, and maybe she found the pornographer of her dreams, and it was all great. But then a couple months go by, and we're out at a bar, me, Sean, and my coworker Jason, who is another single guy in the company, and who I would assess had better prospects than me. But we're at a bar, and we're sort of pounding down, some brews, and after sort of the customary nerd sort of denouncing of Phantom Menace, Sean sort of mentions, like, I wanna break up with my girlfriend, and I got to point out that Sean's girlfriend, she had very, very, well, not only was she beautiful, but she had very large breasts, which I mean. Not that really matters. Men like breasts, full stop. Big breasts, small breasts, it doesn't matter. We just like to have access to a pair. And but I thought to a pornographer that a beautiful woman who had really big breasts, this was his ideal woman. So I couldn't really understand why he would want to break up with her. And so, despite all of my, Jesuit training, I sort of lash out at Sean, and I'm like, why do you want to break up with her? She's beautiful, and he's like, I want to be single like you and Jason. I want to play the field, and I'm like, what field? Like the field we're on? Like there's nobody on that field. It's me and Jason, and what field do you think you're playing on? And that's when I sort of realized that maybe, economics is not the best model for these kinds of things, that maybe poker is a better model. There's sort of a maximum in poker that if you're sitting at a poker table and you can't identify the fish, that you are probably the fish. And I realized at that moment that I was the fish. Thank you.